All right. That should do it. I still can't see fine print. I think we got it. Okay.
It says it's being recorded.
All right. I didn't get that notice, which I should have. Okay. All right. Amy, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sue-Ann Jaffarian is the author of 3 critically acclaimed mystery series: the Odelia Gray series, love that one, the Ghost of Granny Apples series, and the Madison Rose Vampire Mysteries. She also launched 2 new non-mystery series: the Zelda Bowen series, a humorous set of novels featuring a single woman searching for adventure and herself as she travels the country in an RV, and the Dead Woman Driving serial novel about a woman living off the grid to save her life. Sue-Ann also writes general fiction and short stories and is a regular contributor to Winnebago's Winnebago Go Life blog. In addition to writing, Sue-Ann is sought after as a motivational speaker, experienced with libraries, fundraisers, and conferences. If you please welcome Sue-Ann Jaffarian.
Thank you for having me. It's at least I was sought after as a speaker until COVID hit. But that seems to be starting up again, which is nice. Took it a while. Something else to add to my bio, if you don't know, I was very active in the Sisters in Crime Los Angeles group. I was on their board for like 8 years, 4 of which as the president. So I'm very familiar with Sisters in Crime. Very, very good organization. I'm no longer a member because I travel. I don't know how much Amy has explained, but I live in a van, and I have lived in this van for over 5 years. I retired from my day job as a corporate paralegal in Los Angeles. And I took to the road in a 20-foot Winnebago Travato. And, what can I say? Writers write, and writers can write anywhere, as we learned about Agatha Christie earlier. You can write anywhere. If you want to write, nothing should stop you. So I took my writing on the road. I am coming to you today from rural Kentucky in a campground that is just beautiful. As I'm looking at you, I'm also looking out at this gorgeous lake. I want to see all your faces. I'm looking out at this gorgeous lake view. So, it's what could be better? Sitting at a picnic table or in my van. I have a little desk in my van, and writing while you look at a beautiful lake. So it's my dream job. It's my dream job. I've been writing for over 20 years, and I'm continuing to do so now. Now, I have some exciting news before we get into writing things. I just recently, probably in the last year, I got a new agent. My other agent was starting to ghost me, which was not sitting well with me. And I know this is a common problem with agents. So I got a new agent because I was working on a travel book. The travel book is called I Sleep Around. And I do. I mean, I can be in a parking lot or a campground or wherever. So my new agent just sold it. She just sold my travel book. So yay, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And what's even better, we got 2 offers in 24 hours. Excuse me. So, excuse me. So I just signed the contract yesterday. And I can't really announce who it's with or anything because they haven't put it on Publishers Marketplace. My new agent also sold my Odelia Gray series, all 12 books, to an audio publisher, something that my old agent couldn't seem to get done in 10 years. And I was with Midnight Ink, and they could never get that done. And then I mean, it just kept coming. All this has happened in the last month, ladies. This is, I'm telling you all this to show that even after 20 years, boom, all kinds of things can happen in your career. So I also signed contracts yesterday for 3 novels with the same publisher who bought my travel book. And I have not announced that at all because I was told not to, but I just signed the contracts. And that's my Zelda Bowen series. That was a Finding Zelda, the first book in the series. I self-published that. And my agent pitched it to them, and they bought the self-published book that they are bringing out under their own imprint. And they bought 2 more novels in that series. So, you know, it's interesting that you think, just when you think, oh, everything, oh, at least I did. One of my besties will tell you that for the last year, she's been listening to me whine about my my writing career flatlining. You would think, well, you've been writing for 20 years, maybe it's time to hang it up. But, you know, I knew my writing career was not dead. I also knew it was not even on life support. It was just kind of humming along. And then boom, all this happened. So if any of you are frustrated, hang in there. I mean, I could have retired from writing. I have an excellent backlist to be proud of, but apparently my career wasn't done with me yet. So all that has happened in the last month. Now, getting on the topic of writing anywhere, when I retired from my day job, until that point, the only place I could write was at my desk, at my laptop, or my desktop, whatever it was, but at my desk. I have never been one of those writers who would go to a coffee shop or a library or anything like that. I couldn't even work in my living room. I mean, this is my desk, this is my chair, this is my cat, and that's how I wrote. And I wrote every day from about 6 to 9. I didn't have to be to work till 10. So I would write every day. I'd crawl out of bed, get cleaned up, and I'd write before going to work. And I did that for years and years and years. Now my life is different. But when I set out to retire from my day job, I knew I needed to have a place I could write, but I also wanted to travel. And so I stumbled upon the idea of living in an RV. Now, I have to tell you, I have never been an RVer. I had never been in an RVer when I made this decision. This was one of those things I researched, and I found it and thought, oh, that could work, because then I could write at my own desk, and my own desk moves, but I'm still at my own desk. You know, I know that sounds crazy, and so I've been doing that now for years. And some days I'm sitting, as I am now, I have a fold-out desk. I'm sitting in the desk in a comfortable chair. I have a different cat who is sleeping next to me. And I now write, and I write every day, almost every day. I don't want to say every day like I'm going to die if I don't. I write almost every day. Writers write. And even when I thought my career was kind of, just going along, I still wrote. And some days I write at a picnic table, looking out at a lake, like where I'm at today. It's a little chilly to be out there this morning, but I write there. I have written in Walmart parking lots. I have written in truck stops with 18-wheelers buzzing around me. I have learned that I can write anywhere, because my desire to write, I don't know what you call it. It's just like that urge to write, the frenzy to write, has shown me that I can write anywhere. So today, and for the next 6 days, I'll be writing in Kentucky. By next week, I'll be writing in Texas. So, but for me, I find writing at my desk in my van is going back to writing in my apartment in Los Angeles. It's a set place, a set computer, my coffee, everything's right here. So I'm still within the parameters of what I need to write, but I'm writing. I think the biggest distraction for me writing anyway here out on the road is that there's so much cool stuff to see that sometimes it's easy to get distracted by museums and restaurants and meeting up with friends and things like that. So, you know, but you ladies, you have, I assume we're all ladies here. No brothers in crime today. But anyway, the desire to write overrode my need for stability. Does that make sense? It overrode my need for, I guess it's almost a OCD need that this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen, or I can't write. It just, I learned to override all that and make it happen. So, but distractions, but you all have distractions of your own. How many, raise your hand if you have distractions that keep you from writing. Yes, we all have distractions that keep us from writing. You have family obligations. If you're married, you know, you have obligations there. You have housekeeping to do, laundry to do, all that stuff to do. Well, guess what? It's not that different from me living in a van. I have to do laundry, but I only do mine every couple of weeks, and I have to find a laundromat. I have to keep this place clean. Later today, I'll be vacuuming. It's the same stuff as living in sticks and bricks. And that's what we call living in an apartment or a home, sticks and bricks. That's the vernacular for us roadies. It's the same. It's the same distractions, the same things that suck your time and your energy. And so what do you do when you find those things sucking your time and your energy? You have to take care of them. So what do? You make a commitment, you make a schedule. I've found I am a very prolific writer. I always have been until probably the last year or so. That's when I kind of slowed down. But I found that if I say from this time to this time, I'm going to write, come hell or high water, then I get more done. If I don't do that, the day fritters away. I mean, how many have found that true? The day will fritter away before you know it. And when I first, you know, like I said, before I got on the road, I wrote every morning from 6 to about 9. And I did that. I kept that up. The first year I was on the road, I would get up. It would be dark 100 out. And I'd be sitting here in my jammies with my coffee, and I would be working. And then that got old real quick. Now I find that I like to sleep in. And so now I tend to write more from about 10 till noon, and then do something physical. And then in the afternoon, I write again. I also keep a daily journal on Patreon. And so that sucks. I don't want to say suck. I enjoy doing it, but it does suck up about an hour to an hour and a half of my writing time a day. So if I want to be productive on a novel or on my travel book, I have to write extra to get that journal done, because people are expecting that every day and they pay for it every day. So, you know, I had to add extra time. So I had to find time to write. But I have found that the older I get, the less I want to get up at 6 o'clock and write. How many of you, I mean, I see some young faces. I'm so glad to see young faces, but how many of you ladies of a certain age find that the older you get, the slower you write? Anyone? Yeah. Thank you, Frankie, Janet. I used to put out a novel like every few months. I've noticed that, and this has nothing to do with retirement. I think this just has to do with my brain just doesn't move as fast as it used to. And so I had to accommodate for that. I noticed that about the second year I got on the road, second or third year, that I wasn't writing as fast. The ideas were there, but I wasn't as fast at it. So as a writer, and I guess I can say it's because my career has expanded over such a long time, you adapt to changes in your writing style, your location, even physical things. I have arthritis in my hands. It's not crippling arthritis, but at the end of a writing session, my hands hurt. They never did before. So you kind of accommodate that. But throughout the whole thing, you keep in mind that what do you want? You want to write. I want to write bad enough that I'm willing to get up and do it every day until it's done. So, you know, that's really the advice. I always, when people say, what advice do I have to give to writers? I say, make a schedule, stick to it, and keep your butt in the chair. The butt in the chair is the hardest part of writing, I think. Keeping your butt in the chair, your hands on the keyboard. Even if you're not writing, part of writing is also researching. Part of it is also thinking of the stories and making notes and things like that. But the hardest part is keeping your butt in the chair. When a friend calls and says, let's go shopping or let's go to a movie, and you're tempted, you say, well, I can do that in 3 hours. Check back with me in 3 hours, you know. In my case, I do a lot of meetups. I have a lot of friends I know on the road, and they'll say, we're all meeting up at this campground. Well, I'll go there. They might be off doing something late morning. I'm in my van writing, and they know that. I mean, it's gotten to where my friends know if my van door is shut and I'm at my desk, you do not disturb Sue. They know that, and they respect that. But you just have to find what's best for you, your commitment, your commitment and your schedule, and stick to it. And if you fall off the wagon, it's like a diet. You can be real good, but if you fall off the wagon, it's not the end of the world. You just get back on that schedule and keep going. So, how many of you ladies are published already? I know Amy is. Oh, great, great, nice. So, how many of you have more than one more book in you that you think you can write 4, 5, 6, 7 more books? Good for you. Good for you. I have 30 books, 35 books. And you just keep going. And if it burns in you, you keep going. So I want to open it up for questions, because sometimes I can be going down a path on these presentations that no one cares about. And then questions will come up that I can answer and lead you onto the path you want to go. So does anyone have a question? Yes, Frankie.
Frankie,
Unmute
you're
yourself.
muted.
Yeah, in terms of a schedule, I have a difficult schedule, but can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a difficult time scheduling a time when I can write every day, because I teach and I also have to, I would write in the morning, but you can probably hear my dog snoring. I've got to get him to daycare and things before class. And so I'm teaching on Monday and Tuesday at different times. And then the rest of the week is unpredictable. So that's a complicated schedule that I'm trying to work around to find one time when I can work every day. Any suggestions about that?
I do, because I have heard this from other writers, and I know writers who have had to have, you don't need to write every day. Make a schedule. I know one writer that put out a book a year by only writing on Sundays. And, that was his day. His wife knew, everyone knew Sunday was his day to write. And he wrote every single day, all day on Sunday. So if you can only write Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday, or Saturday and Sunday mornings, you find the schedule that makes you the most productive.
Weekends used to be my
every-
most my
No, you're muted, Frankie. I can't hear you, Frankie. There we go.
yeah, I was saying weekends used to be my most productive time, but now I have the dog, and the dog, believe it or not, you can hear him snoring probably now, wants to go in and out all weekend, and so I lose my productive time. So I'm trying to find time in the week, but it's yeah.
You're mute. There we go. You keep going in and out of mute, Frankie. You know, it's a trial and error thing to find what suits you and your lifestyle. And you will find that. Just keep trying different things. You know, and be flexible. I recently just got back from 4 months of touring the Canadian Maritime provinces. And I was with one of my best friends who also has a band like mine. Well, I found I was writing in the afternoons. We would travel in the morning, do our sightseeing in the morning. We'd land around 2, 3 o'clock, wherever we were going to stay that night. And I would write in late afternoon for a few hours. I couldn't do it in the morning because that's when we needed to get out and see things. And so I had to adjust that. It was either don't write or adjust my time. So you will find what works for you. Just keep trying. It's like you almost have to keep spinning that wheel, Frankie, to see what's going to work for you. And once you find it, lock it in. And you know, and use your dog as you know, sometimes when you're writing, how many have had writer's block? You know, there are times when you're writing and all of a sudden nothing will come out of your head. Nothing will come onto the page. I always used housework for that. I would get up and clean the toilet, empty the dishwasher, play with the cats, anything. And I found by doing something, walk, go outside and walk. And then when I came back, I was ready to write again. So I don't often hit blocks like that, but when I do, I find if I do something physical, it like loosens up the rocks that are stuck in there. Use your dog for that. If he wants to go out and walk with him, then come back and say, okay, you've peed, it's my time, you know. And another question? Yes. Tina?
I kind of want to piggyback on Frankie. You have a lot of projects. You have your blog, you have your, it looks like 2 or 3 book contracts. So I think that's the hardest thing for me is juggling. Like I have a contract of deadline and I have to meet that, but I also have other projects I want to work on. And I don't know how to, because I'm having enough trouble finding that time like Frankie's talking about. And then on top of it, trying to divvy up what time I have into giving each project some attention. And it sounds like you have so much on your plate. So how do you do that? Do you alternate days? I mean, like you said, everybody has to find what works for them, but I'm just curious.
Well, it was interesting. When I took to the road, all my contracts were gone. I had fulfilled the last of them a month before I took to the road. So I had no contracts. But in 2020, when COVID hit, one of my publishers had gone out of business, Midnight Ink. And they closed down, gave me all my rights back. Well, you know, I'm sitting around, and believe me, even though I lived in a van, I had to seclude myself, you know, and that's when I tackled getting them all back up for sale. But that was an odd year. But what I did this when I still had contracts, and I do it now, is I believe if you have, say, a book that's not under contract, but it's your heart, it's something you really want to work on, I would write for about a half hour on that project. Or I would say, do 1 or 2 pages. remember, if you do a page a day at the end of the year, you have a whole book.
That's true.
So, yeah. So I might, if I have a special project, my Finding Zelda book was like that originally. It was one that I was just doodling on while I was finishing up contracts. And, before I knew it, I had a book. And
It's a very good way of looking at it. One page, everybody can write a page. Right?
Everyone can write a page a day. And I would find that I would just, I would do it maybe after lunch, after not before I did my heavy duty writing, but maybe in the afternoon I would sit down and go, okay, let's focus on this pet project. And I'd start and sometimes I'd end up with 5 pages.
Sure, because once you're in,
you're in. And sometimes it was a struggle to get that page done.
Right.
But at the end of the time, you have a book. Now it's rough draft.
Oh, but that's okay. Yeah, but that's okay, because it really pains me that there are these projects that I'm afraid to get distracted by, actually. But I want them, and they just keep sitting there kind of, but I like this idea of tackling a page a day. And I wanted to say something to Frankie too, people with little children, I didn't write when I had when my son was young, but sometimes I know I've heard of people who keep their child at daycare like an extra hour, so that they can fit their writing in, for example. So if Frankie's sending her dog out so she can go to work for the day, she might want to tack on an extra hour for herself for writing. I don't know if it's a possibility, but it's something to consider.
There are ways to do this. I know one woman who wrote novels while sitting in the pickup line for school.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Get in line and wait and bring out her laptop and start writing.
That's right.
I worked with
laptop.
Yeah. I worked with a woman years and years ago before I even thought about writing. And she came into the office every morning very early and wrote before she had to clock in for her actual job. There are ways to do it. I have another friend who wrote on his lunch hour. He was a salesman. And during his lunch hour, he'd go to a parking lot or a park and sit in his truck and work. So if the desire is there, you will find a way. A lot of novels get written after children are in bed for the night. I mean, I have been fortunate. Yeah, a lot of novels have gotten written in late at night when the kids are all tucked in. I don't have children. I have been fortunate that way because my time is my own. I don't have a husband. I've never had children, so my time is my own. But I know so many people who have pursued their dreams successfully while still having a family and jobs that entail travel and things like that. So, but the thing is finding what clicks for you. Right. It's like finding the right pair of shoes. You keep trying things on until the fit is right for you. And then sticking with it. The big C, commitment.
Good advice. Thank you, Sue.
Actually, the mention of the office reminded me, I do have an office on campus. Fergus is at daycare all day, and I could just go directly to the office and write for 2 hours before class.
Good idea.
There you go.
There you go.
Solve no problem.
Time. We always say we find the time for the things we want to do. I have actually written in the laundromats, but unfortunately not all laundromats have a table and chairs. But I have actually, if I go in with my laundry in a laundromat and it's a nice clean laundromat with tables, I'll go get my laptop or I write on an iPad and I will drag that in and I will work because I'm going to be there, an hour and a half. So, but I will confess, not having contracts until this new one, I've been without a contract now for about 4 years or so. It's easy to get lazy because if you don't have a contract deadline brief, at least me, I found that I got a lot lazier when I didn't have a contract breathing down my neck. So it's going to be interesting to see how I am with a contract now. I used to say, people say, why do you write so much? I was putting out 2 novels a year for 2 different publishers and holding down a full job. And I always joked and said, breach a contract. That's what terrified
Your
me.
motivating force.
Huh?
Your motivating force. Breach
My
of contract.
force. Well, I found that after having no contracts, I kind of I slid a little, I backslid a little. But recently, when we sold the travel book, my agent contacted me and she said, because, you know, nonfiction is sold on proposal. And so I was working on the travel book, but not real wholeheartedly. And my agent contacted me and she said, do you have that book done? And I went, well, no, I'm waiting to see if somebody wants to buy it. I don't want to put all that energy into something if no one wants to buy it. And she said, well, I have somebody that's probably going to make you an offer, but they want to see the finished product. How fast can you get it done? I finished that in 2 months.
Yeah.
It is so funny because I was traveling, like I said, with my girlfriend up in Canada. And near the end of our trip, when I got that, my agent talked to me about that. Well, we were in Nova Scotia and we were traveling around. That was my favorite province. I loved Nova Scotia. And we landed at this free camping right over the ocean. And I said to her, we're just going to spend the night. And I said, can we spend 2 or 3 nights here? Well, she didn't mind. I mean, we had the most gorgeous view and it was free. And I wrote almost nonstop for 3 days. And then when we came every day after that, I wrote every day because now I had, you know, I might have lost the contract if I was given to the end of September to get this done. So then when we came back to the States and we were at a friend's place for a few days, they hardly saw me. I would get up in the morning, get my coffee, and I would work, and no one would see me till about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, you know, sometimes you need outside motivation. But I will say, meeting that deadline, then we went to visit my family, and then my girlfriend took off for her home, and I'm there in the driveway of my family. And I told them, I said, I am going to be writing till this is done. I have to hit this deadline or I could lose this contract. And while I was doing that, my agent got another interest in it. So, you know, here I was, my family's out there, and I'm like, you know, in my thing, and they're waving at me through the window while I work. But I got it done. And here's the thing, I had been so lazy for a while. I mean, the only thing I was writing some days was my journal. But all of a sudden, I found that new joy and excitement. Here I was writing like a maniac, and I was exhausted. I would fall into bed at night with my eyes bulging out, my hands would be hurting. And I got up the next day and did it again until I finished. Did it pay off? Yes. I turned it into my agent a couple of days before the end of September. It was over a weekend. Sunday night, she sent it off to those 2 publishers. Monday, I had offers from both of them. So, but my girlfriend joked, I told her, I said, I think our trip to Canada kind of got my groove back. It's like how Stella got a groove back, how Sue Ann got a groove back. Because ever since that trip, I've been writing every day and I'm turning out really good stuff. It's not half-hearted. So I kind of needed that kick in the butt. So yeah, deadlines do amazing things for me. So now I don't have deadlines for the new books yet. But when they come, I'll meet them. So deadlines are a necessary evil for me.
Very inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah. Although I did put out in the last couple of years, I did put out my Dead Woman Driving. Now that's a serial novel. They're longer than short stories. They like novellas. And I put one out. I was putting out one every month and one every few months until it got established. It was one every month. And I still work on those and get those out. And I don't have deadlines for those. Those are my deadlines. But somewhere along the line, I lost my joy of writing. I'll be honest, about a year ago, I started losing my joy of writing. And it came back during my trip to Canada. And now it's like, oh, yay, I get to write. So don't be surprised if all of a sudden your interest starts going downhill. It doesn't mean your writing career is dead. It just means that maybe you need a rest. That's another thing. Sometimes we just need a rest. Like, give yourself permission to take a day off or a week or something like that and get your head back. So I find I need that periodically. How many of you are going to participate in National or November Writing Month or whatever, Nano Write More? Yeah, me too. I intend to finish the second Zelda book during that time. That's a neat thing because that really shows you discipline. They have you working every day on it or whatever. You have goals. And I find goals really help. Goals really help focus. So another question, maybe a topic we haven't hit on.
No, I
No?
have another question.
Well, I see Melissa's hand.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm not a writer. I'm actually an ARC reader, but I've always wanted to write.
You're a what, Melissa?
ARC reader, meaning advanced copy.
Oh, advanced
I
copy.
read for authors, yes. Only because I would love to write, but I'm dyslexic, comes and goes. So you talked about tools in writing and laptops and iPads, but it becomes very difficult when my head has one thing, but the disconnect to get to the hands to put it on type is difficult. What other tools do you use to get your writing on paper to finished product?
My tools, an iPad, my fingers.
So no dictaphones or things like that would help.
No, I'm
dictating.
old school. I'm old school. I use Word, and the Word has an app for iPad. Let me tell you why I work on iPad. I have a computer here, a laptop here, and I haven't opened it in 5 years. I live in a van, and I'm not always plugged into electricity. So before I hit the road, I decided I would try out an iPad for my writing. A friend of mine, James Ziskin, that's all he wrote on. He said, oh, Sue, you get used to it. It's great. Well, in the van, I can plug this into a USB port. So I never have to worry about it losing power. I have solar on my roof. I always have power for that. Where, as you know, a laptop, after a few hours, you need to plug that sucker in. Well, I can go 10 days without any plugins. So that's why I write on an iPad. So I write on an iPad, I write with Word for iPad, and that's it. I do not use any software to help me. I don't use software for character development. Nothing like that. I know a lot of writers use all different kinds of programs for things, grammar and all that. I just use Word, and I don't know, very old school. I don't dictate it. Now, Melissa, that's something that would help you. Dictation software would help you write. So you might want to look into that, because as you speak, the dictation is not going to be dyslexic. There are people, I'm sure, there are writers out there producing great books who have your challenge. So look into that. Look into that.
That's where all the
gonna
notes and the journals are, but they're not into complete writing form, but that's where all the ideas are.
I'm going to piggyback on that. I was thinking of that, Swain, before you mentioned it for Melissa. There have been times I've had a number of health problems for one reason or another. There have been times that I cannot sit at the computer, I can't see, or I just physically can't sit. And although I have not gotten into buying dictation software, because luckily these periods of time have been fairly short, but I dictate into my phone as though I'm composing an email. And I using the Google microphone, not necessarily, your phone's microphone. The Google microphone system, you dictate the punctuation and everything, and it all comes in. I can say, it was a dark and stormy night, period, and it puts the period in, and the next word is capitalized. So if you can read arcs, then maybe, I don't know enough about your situation, maybe you could do bits and pieces like that. When I'm done and when I can sit at the computer again, I'll go to those drafts and I'll copy and paste into a Word doc, and then I can read them and fix them up and edit and so forth. So before you sunk money into a software program, that might be a free and easy way to see if that works for you. So just piggybacking on the dictation idea. Tina, you were going to ask something.
Yes, I was curious about your travel plans, like how you choose where you're going to go. Does it have to do with your writing? Does it make its way into your writing, or do you choose it for your writing, or not related at all?
Well, at first it wasn't related at all. But then people kept saying, you really should write fiction about being on the road. And that's where Zelda came in. Well, Zelda originally started as a series of short stories. And then as I was working on the book, I went, oh. So at the end of Zelda, her life changes. And in book 2, she's on the road. And I do. I mean, every place I go, the Dead Woman Driving, I mean, I have friends who will read that and go, I've been to that campground, or I've been to that site, or I've been to this. And so I use it a lot in my writing now. But how I decide where I'm going is really, it's interesting. It's just, I have a friend of mine called this who also travels a lot. And she has a van like mine. Another friend, and she calls what I do anchor travel. I have anchor points throughout the year. I always go see my family once a year in Massachusetts. I tend to spend my Christmas in Mississippi at a particular campground. Although this year I haven't made reservations because my plans got screwed up. I may not be there for Christmas. But I have anchor points. Twice a year I go back. My home base now is Texas. When I retired, I lived in Los Angeles. My home base now is Texas. It's a great place for RVers to have as a home base. So I go back to Texas twice a year for physicals. So anchors. And then in between, like, Jay, where do I stay?
I was thinking about that precisely because you rekindled a passion project. My husband and I had thought about doing that, but we thought when we'd retire, we would do pretty much what you're doing. That was before writing was in my life. We never did it for various reasons. And then when I heard about you coming to speak here today, I'm like, wow. I told my husband, you know what she's talking about? This sounds wonderful. I have to pick her brain. But then we started saying all the pitfalls, like my husband he needs certain treatments every 3 weeks, and there's things that would keep us from traveling too far, but it could still be done. You
still be done. I have a friend, there's a gentleman who also has a Travato. I belong to a really big club of Travato owners. And he has cancer and he has to go back to Florida for his treatments. That does not stop him one bit from being out and about. When we see that he's on the move and he's posting in our Facebook group and he's on the move, we know he's after a treatment or whatever. And then when we see him going back to Florida, we know he has to go for a treatment. So, again, it's like writing. Anything in life, if you want it bad enough, you make it happen.
It works.
Really make it work. It's, I always like to choose places. Now, this is something, I also have a YouTube channel and I do a video every week on, mostly on travel and sometimes on writing. But one of my friends just did a short video on this in our Facebook group called Travel Fatigue.
Mm.
I mentioned it in my latest Tuesday. That's my Tuesday videos. This one next Tuesday. And it's travel fatigue is when you're buzzing around so much and that you don't have downtime. And I just hit the wall on that. I left my family in Massachusetts, and for 10 days, I did nothing but travel and go to museums and things, write about those. And every night I was in a different parking lot, or, casino parking lot or Walmart or Cracker Barrel or whatever. And I felt I was hitting the wall. Tony called it travel fatigue, and she's right. And that's why I'm around now for 9 days. And I was still writing when I was feeling fatigued, but you don't write well when you're fatigued. We all know that. So I'm right storm here. So a lot of times where I go depends on what I want to see. Canada was something, Canada, my Stacy said, I want to do this. Do you want to come along?
Mhm.
Sure, I got nothing else to do. Why not? So, but know that writing on the road, if you decide to get a trailer or an RV or whatever, you can write. Writers can write anywhere.
It's very promising. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's really nice to have a career you can take on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that with many careers. This is something you can take on the road. And activity. Now, sometimes that's a challenge. I've only been in this actual campsite, since yesterday afternoon. The one I was in before, same campground, different site, had almost no connectivity. And when I came here yesterday, I booked this one in particular because it said it had good connectivity. I came here, it was like, I can do my Zoom meeting without buffering issues, but you don't need the internet to write. All you need is to write. You don't need the internet. If I need to research something, I'm in a place with wonky internet, I just make notes of all the stuff I have to research. And then when I'm back and connected, I research them. So connectivity is the one thing that I battle with. And I do not have, like I said, I'm old school. I have friends, they have Starlink and this and that and all this stuff to bring in the internet. I don't want that expense. And so I can write anywhere, and my internet comes and goes enough that I can deal with it. So that's, thank you, Mary. Thank you.
I hate to do this, but I'm actually I have another meeting in a couple of minutes. This was fascinating for me. I don't want to call the meeting, but I just want to say thank you, but I do have to go. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Tina. So any other questions?
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any last minute questions or comments, Sue Ann, this has just been inspirational on so many ways. And I think writers can always use inspiration, even if you're on a good roll. It just, there's no downside to listening to this kind of exciting, and like you said, every problem can be overcome. You've got to be creative sometimes, but there's no problem that stands in your way. If you want to write something, you're going to find a way to write it.
And one of the one of the things that we touched on with the when I've been driving all day, say I've been driving 2.5, 3 hours a day, and then I write for a couple hours. When I do my journal, my Patreon journal, sometimes I just can't face a computer screen. I dictate it on my phone. I dictate it on my phone. It gets done. I can correct it, and then I can post it. I can dictate it right onto the Patreon app. But I find dictation at the end of the day is something that really saves me if I've been writing. And, I also almost exclusively read through audiobooks because, again, if I'm driving and writing, my eyes are tired and I found I wasn't reading. So now I read, it's not, I shouldn't say exclusively, I do read books from time or on my Kindle from time to time, but I'm finding I'm doing much more audible books because my hands get so tired. So that's a thing too, is that, you roll. I'm getting older. I'm going to be 71 in a couple of months. I'm getting older. And I have to adapt with that, just like we have to adapt for scheduling. So I have the best writing advice. It did not come from me. And I usually close out every program with this. Let me find it on my phone. I should have keyed it up, but I didn't.
Okay.
How do you know Chuck Wendig? Do you know who Wendig is? You do, Amy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Chuck Wendig is a wonderful sci-fi writer. He wrote books, the Star Wars books, things like that. He's quite well known in this sci-fi area. Years and years ago on his blog, he put this, and it's The Secret to Writing. And I took this to heart, and every program I end with this when I'm speaking to writers. So here is Chuck Wendig's The Secret to Writing. Write as much as you can, as fast as you can, finish your shit, hit your deadlines, try very hard not to suck. The end. That's very simple rules.
It's the bottom
Write
line.
as much as you can. And remember, get it all on the page. This came up the other day somewhere. Another writer's thing we were talking about, and somebody, don't try to get it perfect the first time. Get that draft done and then go back and edit and clean it up. If you wait to write every word perfect, well, you're never going to get it done, ever. So, remember that. It says, write as fast as you can. Get that initial thing on. That's why November Writing Month, NaNoWriMo More is so good. 1 month, get that draft done. And then you can go through and hone and clean and polish and all that. So don't let your tendency to want it to be perfect the first time. I only know of one writer who ever wrote a book and they never changed anything, and that was Truman Capote. So
Interesting.
anyway, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so much for joining us. It's been wonderful. Thanks to Amy for making the connection.
Yes, Amy, we were together at Midnight Ink, weren't we?
We were, yes. We started, I think we
I
were
thought
both
that's where I
published
knew
that
you from.
first year.
Yeah, it's so funny because I know I've known you for a long time, and I kept thinking, no, it was Midnight Ink. We were together at Midnight Ink.
It was indeed, yeah.
Yes. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you for having me. It's nice to connect with my sisters in crime. So
Well, thanks very
y'all
much,
take
and
care.
safe driving. Happy trails.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue Ann.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.